right, welcome to Fox 23's Frigid, where we take a deep dive with a keen eye into cold cases across the state of Oklahoma. My name is Kaylie Cotten, and today I'm joined by Nokusece and Mindy Caudill. Thank you so much both for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
So today we're talking about a case out of Seminole, the disappearance of Cara Cox. So Cara last spoke to her family or people around her that she was close to on May 15th, the evening of May 15th of 2022, and was last actually seen on, you said, security video on
Yes.
May 13th, right? So she was apparently traveling with a truck driver across the country who said he dropped her off at a truck stop in Arizona, and then his story changed and said she was dropped off somewhere in California. Cara is a member of the Muskogee Creek Nation and was 41 when she disappeared. But before we get too much into the details of the case, I am curious, who is Cara?
Cara was very rare. She was a rare person. She had a really keen sense of adventure. She loved to fish. She loved to clean her own fish. She liked to be in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
She did, carry a lot of grief with her. Sometimes she didn't trust herself quite so much. She stayed in contact with family and friends and people that, that she had in her life.
Mm-hmm.
She was always kind of double checking.
Yeah. She seemed very free-spirited.
Yeah, but she still, she reached out. She would always check in, whatever she was doing or thinking or wanted to do. She was always checking in.
I was going to ask if she was close to family.
Yeah, she, even if she was in a relationship with somebody or even if people that she was no longer in contact with, she would still, check in with those people. Once you were close to her, she would
cared.
she would never just, stop talking to anybody.
Does she have any children?
Yes, she has 2 sons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How old are they?
23 and 24, I believe.
Yeah. So the driver who said he dropped her off, do we know if she was traveling with them the whole journey or was what happened? Because I know there was a mention of her car being found at a gas station.
Yeah.
So tell me what you know about that situation.
So I got a call from a family member, a place that she had previously lived. A tow bill came in the mail, and it was for towing her car from Love's truck stop.
Mm-hmm.
And he reached out to me and was like, "Hey, have you heard from Cara? Her car's been, towed. I haven't heard from her,
Mm-hmm.
And initially I was like, maybe the car broke down, something like that.
Yeah.
And it just kind of went from there. I started, posted on Facebook, hey, has anybody seen or heard from Cara? Called the record company,
Mm-hmm.
Spoke to them, started, kind of backtracking,
Tracing her steps.
Yeah. And so that's what led to me reaching out to, it was an ex-boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
They had dated. She had been in the truck with him before. They had been on trips for his job before.
Mm-hmm. So the truck driver was an ex-boyfriend?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
When I initially reached out to him, he's like, no, I hadn't heard from her, you might check her apartment. She was talking to this guy, you need to check him out. So I did. I started calling people that she, had spoke with. I had the police do a welfare check at her apartment in Sand Springs.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of went from there. I went and visited her church. She was a regular active member of her church, which was quite a long ways from where she lived.
Mm-hmm.
But she would still, she would attend online when she couldn't be there. She would attend in person.
Mm-hmm.
That's who knew her the most.
Her church family?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then from speaking with them, I was able to kind of get a picture of, who she was around, who's, she did have some friends up there that I never met before. I didn't know them.
Mm-hmm.
But so I realized, during this time period, I realized she's actually missing. Like, something's really wrong. So I reached out to the Seminole Sheriff's Department, since that's where her car,
was found.
Other agencies were like, yeah, you need to, that's who you need to go through.
So what day was that when you actually, like, filed her as a missing persons case?
June 2nd, I believe.
June 2nd, okay.
I probably, maybe the notebook would have come in handy. It was somewhere.
But it was a little ways away since she was last seen and heard, but that wasn't, did she do that a lot? Did she kind of travel or go around, or was this a completely...
No, she had been in the truck with him before. I do know that, but...
I was just curious if her being gone, on little spurts, last minute kind of trips was normal for her.
Not really. Not without anybody knowing.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, she, like, her and I traveled to go see family. We've done last minute things. Went to Wyoming one time.
That somebody always knew.
Yes, yeah.
And are you her only sister? Do you guys have any siblings besides just you two?
Yeah.
So do we know why was she going to California? Do we know where she was headed?
No, there's no indication that she would go on the trip and not return at her own will. She paid all of her bills before she left. There's just, there was just no indication that she would go and not return, leaving her car at Love's,
Was there any reason she was even in Seminole?
Not that we know of, other than, I could make assumptions, but I don't know. No, there was no particular thing. But that's kind of how that's how we found out that she was with him in the first place. We knew that she was at Love's. We didn't know why.
Yeah.
And so we requested the surveillance footage from that area. And I had just got back from visiting her church family, and I met with the truck driver, and I'm like, hey, we're about to find out what actually happened. We got the surveillance at Love's, they're going to look it over. And he's like, well, she was actually with me. We got an argument. I even have her suitcase in my truck. And I was like, oh, right then. But so I called the sheriff's department. The woman that was helping me with my case was like, let me talk to him. I hand him my cell phone. She speaks to him. She tells him to give me the suitcase. We put the suitcase in the truck, and I drove it straight to the sheriff's department. And then they admitted it. They went through and took pictures and looked at everything inside.
So was he officially deemed like a person of interest in her case?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Did you talk to law enforcement about why?
Law enforcement has every question that I asked for at least a year and a half was, this is an investigation. This is an ongoing investigation. We can't tell you anything.
You're not getting updates.
I had no clue. But that wasn't the only agency that I spoke with. So once I realized he couldn't even really narrow down which one, but once he finally narrowed down after several questions, he's like, well, it was the Essex rest stop in California. I left within 48 hours. Went down there. In my mind, she could still be there, I don't know, sitting outside this truck stop. In my mind, I thought it was a truck stop. But when I got there, I actually realized it is a rest stop that only has a bathroom and a 911 phone.
Oh, one of those little, side road stops.
Yeah, and it's 50 miles from the nearest town. It's in the Mojave National Preserve. And
so he's saying, what was the time frame between when his story changed? Because first it was, I didn't see her. And then his first story was, oh, I dropped her off in Arizona.
Several days.
So several days between that. And then when did it become, oh, I actually dropped her off in California? It
was that Sunday that I went to church, during that conversation when we talked about the surveillance at Love's. He gave the suitcase, and then it was like, oh, my gosh.
So once there was surveillance video saying, hey, we could put two and two together, he was like, okay, let me admit that she was with me.
Yeah.
Okay. So he said that they were arguing, and he essentially dropped her off, whether she wanted to go or he kicked her out, something like that.
He didn't specify a real detailed story. He said that she went in the bathroom and that she didn't come out.
And he didn't think to check on her?
He says that he waited several hours. It doesn't add up. I can't get the answers to those questions, no matter how many times I ask. I'm hoping law enforcement asked him as well.
Yeah.
But no, there's no details. I don't know what she was wearing. I don't know what time of day it was. I do know that she did go into the restroom in February, months before that, went into the restroom at a quick trip and called 911 over a trip that she was actually with him. And police responded to that. So I think that she did at some point go into a restroom and not come out, but I think that it was in February. I don't think that it happened in May.
So what specific law enforcement agencies are on Cara's case?
It started out speaking with Sand Springs, Tulsa. Seminole County Sheriff's Department originally took the call. That's where I filed the missing persons. It's been through San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. Then I requested, we had a detective with San Bernardino. I requested FBI, I requested help with the FBI just because it was so many states. They gave me a guy named Agent Beck in LA. Every time I talked to him, he was on vacation. I never did. I texted him a few times, but I never did get to actually speak with him. And then finally, we applied for the BIA here in Oklahoma. Creek Nation got a hold of the case. They did so much. They did so much. And in between then, we found out, so the Sheriff's Department had a shift in a shift, like an election or something happened. There was a different sheriff.
Right.
And when I went and spoke with him, he said that it was never actually in their jurisdiction at all. And they determined that it was it was Seminole Light Horse. And so they ended up getting the case, way late. After, there's so many things that were missed.
Yeah.
By the time they got the case. And then they requested BIA's assistance. They did so much. They actually investigated. But I think up until that point, it went a year and a half just.
And when did you began getting involved in this case?
Gosh. I had touched on it a little bit. I had inquiries from other investigators, and then friends and family, but I don't remember the exact date because I have to have the family call me and ask me.
Yeah.
And I don't even who was it that
It was me, I believe.
but somebody we knew.
Jonathan Sharp told me.
To get it, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, Jonathan Sharp. Yeah.
And who's that?
That's a
Wonderful guy in our
lifelong
community.
friend.
Yeah.
So a friend of a
graduated with my
friend
sister,
got you. Yeah.
And he's actually he actually helped me with the process of getting set up with, the BIA, helping me find out whose jurisdiction it was. Because at the time I was like, they just don't care. But I think it was just a jurisdiction toss. In the meantime, we had McGirt. That whole thing was going on right in the middle of that. It was a mess.
They, Seminole County, Shannon had resigned, and Louis had taken the place of sheriff before running, and he was actually a light horse sergeant for Seminole Nation, and then he brought in word for the undersheriff. So they take this case a little personal too, because they tried to act at the time, but Seminole PD was claiming they had jurisdiction and Seminole County had jurisdiction, and so when Louis took over, he gave it to the proper people in order to start the real which would have been Seminole Nation Light
Yeah.
Horse, who can then call in the BIA, which is Vincent, and then crossing state lines wound up being the FBI. In some area, there was even a casino mentioned where we had to use the BIA. Because the BIA, there was a law made a long time ago to where they can't follow us. They can't track us anymore like they used to. So it's hard for them to keep up with us when we're pulled into other state lines. But say a casino where they were possibly at, he was able to go to that reservation. And be able to do an investigation and see if she was even there with him, because it was even claimed that there might have been 3 of them: Cara, another girl, and the driver. And with the driver's story changing so much, to me, he will always be a suspect in this case, whether he dropped her off or not. Changing where he held up the investigation, and there's still that possibility, because we have so many serial killers that are truck drivers and working the highways, that somebody could have seen them arguing, and they could have had another episode like they did in Quick Trip, and that guy could have just pulled right up and got her, and Cara not knowing, the situation she was in. But
like you're saying, somebody else could have walked up, seen her in a vulnerable state, was like, I'll get you out of here, and then something happened.
But then, to me, there's always, though, his misinformation.
The wishy-washy.
The driver, why not say, I'm the one that picked her up at I-40, that's why her car's here, we got into it, I dropped her off up here. Why not contact them, who he knew, when he got back and said, hey, your sister's here, or on the way home, your sister's here, we got into it again, I left her here.
Just to kind of go along that line of questioning, were they together a long time?
About a year.
And was he close with her family? Was he close with, like, you and everybody else?
No.
Or did you not know him very well?
I knew him from childhood, but I didn't even know they had a relationship until after.
Because I was just curious, like, if he was not necessarily in contact with you all the time,
But he knew who she was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he had, I did have messages every now and then.
Yeah.
I'd be like, hey, what are you doing? I just never responded. But any given time, he knew how to contact me.
Right.
And not just me, our other family he did have contact with. Shoot, call the police, say, hey.
Yeah. Because there's also that argument when somebody, like, their story changes or something, you can say it's nerves because they know they could be deemed a suspect in something, and so they're nervous and they're going all over the place. But there's also that, like, if you are innocent, why not just get all your information out
and help?
Yeah,
if you did care about her.
So it's like one or the other, but it's just not a good light to be painted in.
Yeah, and I feel like specifically the place, that rest stop in particular, is highly dangerous for anybody to be on foot. There's no town nearby.
Yeah, any of those
it's between Needles and Barstow.
Yeah.
And he knew that he had her medicine. He had her prescription medicine in her suitcase in his truck.
Was it, what kind of medicine?
I don't know the name of it. And I don't know exactly what it was for, but I do know.
But it was something she had to take daily?
Yeah, because I watched the sheriff's department pick out every item, take a picture of it, log it into evidence, and that was there.
So he had all her things. He says he dropped her off at this restroom. She didn't come out of the bathroom, and he just left.
We have, like, new information right now that I'm trying to.
Yeah, didn't you just went to California recently, right?
Yes, yeah.
What was that about?
There was a discrepancy between the GPS and his phone for 40 minutes. On this whole entire trip. For 40 minutes, he deviated from his path. But it was miles from where a guy said that he seen her. He called in that tip and called the highway patrol. I'm not privy to that information.
But you just went to check yourself.
Yeah, and I ended up not being able to. I have a extremely old car, 2 small children. Money is a huge problem. I tried to do my transmission fluid myself, put the wrong kind in, and had to make it back to Oklahoma. I wasn't even sure if I could get back here, but I did.
Yeah.
and got it fixed. And now I'm just going to prepare to go back.
Yeah.
We were going to go down there with canines, and then they stopped us and said, let us use our canines. And then 4 months ago, was like, never mind, let's use your canines, but we'll give you a time. Because you got to also go when the weather is right with canines to get the maximum the best outcome for them. And so then they were like, all right, well, let's wait. So I know that we're still working on that.
Yeah.
So we still might be headed out there.
I don't trust him. When I drove out there, I called him.
The sheriff, is it a sheriff or?
This is San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, which is huge, by the
So
way.
the
It's the
one-
size of a state.
Don't they have like 4 jurisdictions?
Yeah.
Sheriff's Department.
So you're talking about the sheriff that went out after that tip that said he didn't find anything. Are you talking about that same sheriff or just the sheriff's department in general?
Yeah, just in general. I never got to be a part of that. Like, I didn't know. But I'll tell you, when I first found out she was missing, when I was like, hey, she was with me at this rest stop, I drove out there, and I ended up going to the closest sheriff's department, which was Needles, which is part of San Bernardino County.
Yeah.
And I spoke to a guy. He's like, yeah, the phone pinged the coordinates. You know, he's talking about 6 miles up Mountain Springs Road. And I'm like, oh. Like, I didn't even know that either. Like, nobody had told me that either. So I have family that live in, like, near Las Vegas, which is like an hour and 40 minutes from this area. So I went there. They assigned me a detective. The detective calls me, and he's like, we're going to go at first light. We're gonna look by air. We're gonna take the Jeeps. We're gonna go search that area where the phone pinged. I'm like, yes. Which when I called him, I told him we were from Oklahoma. Cara and I both, you know. So I tell my family, we're like, all right, we're gonna go. Like, I know that it's around Mountain Springs Road. My whole family, like my family, close friends of the family, we all load up. We go down there. We're listening. We're going up and down this road. There's nobody there. There's no equipment, no people, nothing. And I ended up, we waited, and about 2 hours passed. I ended up calling him and asked him to come out there. And I'm like, you said that you were going to search today. And he's like, y'all are from Oklahoma? All of y'all? And I was like, well, I mean, me and, you know, my cousin. And he's like, well, you know, we had some other things we didn't make it out today. And I thought, they probably would have never even told me. You know what I mean? Like, it makes me nervous. Like
you were there to hold them accountable, and they let you down.
They were really surprised. That I know that they thought I was in Oklahoma. Yeah. But they ended up doing a little bit while they were there. And got some footage from
Well, how can you do nothing if the family is standing right in front of you, being like, we came all this way. You told us something. We're here. You got to deliver.
Yeah.
Since you've been here before, on a previous episode, we did talk about your personal situation and kind of what got you into this work and your personal experience having a loved one, you know, go missing, and you actually found them, your sister, correct? And I won't obviously make you retell that story.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah. But I was curious, you know, did Mindy's situation and Cara's case kind of, you know, relive some of those?
And she's going to try and make me cry again. No, I'm not going to ask you. I just figured out another way to ask you.
I'm sorry.
That's what we're going to do here.
Yeah, I was just curious if you feel a deep connection with Cara and Mindy's situation because of that.
Absolutely. That's her sister. And like brothers have different bonds, sisters have different sisters, and then sisters and brothers have different bonds. Like even today, she said something, and on the way here, I talked to her, and I had to tell her, well, that's not their sister.
Yeah.
You know, because people, I won't go into detail, but people were being a certain way, you know, and trying to tell her to, you know, just let it go. And that's easy for somebody to say when it's not their sister or their family, or they get to go home to all their family members of that household are still there. That's very easy. Oh, let it go. You know, 3 years. She works to search for Cara.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us work to search for other families and stuff that we'd never ask for any money. And if anybody ever does, call us, because that's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody. There's people out there that'll help you for free. I guarantee, especially here in Oklahoma. But she works, and then goes looks for her sister. That's what she's been doing for the last 3 years, almost 3 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And sometimes she relies on people to help her, and then to have those same people start giving up and saying, well, why don't you just let it rest? Why don't you let it go? You can't do that.
Well, it makes me think of, like, it's only been nearly 3 years.
Yeah.
It's been 3 years. It's been 3 years now. That's only 3 years. I mean, we've talked to families that have been doing this, searching for somebody for 10, 15, 20.
We're not going to
It's 3 years.
Yeah.
That's too early to give up.
Yeah.
In my opinion, and I'm sure both of you agree.
And you never will.
You
never will.
Yeah.
Like, it's just what it is. And for some reason, Creator, God, Allah, Yahweh, whatever you want to call it, because I always say everything happens for a reason. And she's never going to stop. She was put in this situation. And I hope that you're still talking to somebody, therapists and stuff, because this is not normal. You've heard me say that, too. This isn't like you stopping at the 21st Street light every day when you get off the exit. This doesn't happen to everybody.
Yeah.
But she's been able also to share other missing flyers. She's been able to help other people and just doing this right here, you were just telling Mary. It's very... It's brave of you.
It's brave
to come tell your story, because this will help the next person. And like I've told Mary, we're not done, and you know that.
I know.
I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not done.
I do.
So, and we have to get these guys to. It's a family show. We have to get these agencies to do what we pay them to do.
Right.
Then we'll do whatever's necessary, and that's usually when I have to get involved. Is because the families are done. They're not getting the help that they deserve, and so they'll reach out to me, because I will call their boss. I'll call the AG. I will call the state attorney. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And people quit and get in other positions, and some people. I was talking about this with an agent the other day. He's a great agent. He's been doing it for 20 years, but some people will just go to missing or homicides for a year or so, just to say they have that under their belt and go somewhere else. They're not really dedicated. To them, it's just another case number, and they leave. But for those that have stayed 10 years, 20 years, they're dedicated, and now they have the networking ability to help those families. And they know some of them don't. You'll never know what it's absolutely like until it's your family member that's missing. And
that's
I hope to God that never happens to anybody ever again, because nobody wants to feel this way.
Of course not.
And I take it personal. And from hearing from the community about Cara, when I had people, again, before the family had asked, agents, Louie and them, the sheriffs and undersheriffs had gotten a hold. I had to wait, for her family. She had so many people. Just say Holdenville, just the town of Holdenville.
Yeah.
That are missing her, that had good stories about her, that why would this happen to such a good person? She would have helped anybody. And that's usually the case, and the people that we have to deal with. Why? They would help anybody. They would give you the shirt off their back. And that was Cara. Like, everybody I grew up with in Holdenville knew who she was, knew her character, knew what a great person she was, and wanted, and that's why I was contacted, because they knew they wanted the best that that she deserved, Cara deserved, Mindy deserved the best, because they weren't getting it.
Yeah.
So.
And it's so unfortunate that, with the McGirt decision, whether you agree that it should have happened or not, it did, all these cases got moved over after the decision was made, and, agencies didn't know who got what. And it is unfortunate in that situation that this happened around the same time, where your sister's case was kind of in this, it was like playing volleyball, and nobody really knows whose case it was until finally they're like, oh, it's ours. But it's like, by then, there's been so much time.
I'll tell you what happened by then. This is what's so frustrating. She had an apartment. Nobody ever looked in. The apartment manager cleaned out her apartment. I wasn't allowed to. I wasn't allowed to go. They weren't allowed to let me in. The police didn't do it. They were like, oh, she's tribal. It needs to be tribal. Tribal's thinking that Seminole's on it. Seminole's thinking that Sand Springs on it. Nobody looked. Her apartment sat there for 2 months.
Yeah.
Before, same with her car. I have no idea if her car was investigated, but I know it was crushed.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing. The semi that he was in, right before questioning, whenever we, found out, it was conveniently wrecked. Nobody's looked at that. Nothing.
Have they declared Cara's case, like, any kind of possible foul play with her disappearance, or is she simply a missing person?
We wouldn't know. I mean, I wouldn't know.
They can't yet until we have her or somebody else
Mm-hmm.
comes forward that has heard something. If you see something, say something. If you hear something, say something. You can remain anonymous.
So unless she's found,
or
they
somebody comes
can
forward,
investigate, like, the truck driver.
I don't know.
He can always be questioned. He's been questioned.
Yeah.
And some agencies have dismissed him as a possible suspect because, again, she could have got picked up at that gas station by somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, even if that was the case, I still think he should be accountable.
Yeah.
Because he put her in that situation. If it wasn't him alone.
I do want to ask you a question, and if you don't feel comfortable answering this, that's okay. But I do want to know, do you believe Cara is out there alive?
I go back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'm like, I know that Cara would have reached out to somebody. She never went a day without talking to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm like, I feel that. But then it's little things like the other day, we had an issue about a gate on the road. And I'm like, I'm going to war with this gate. Because if she comes home, I don't want her to see a locked gate. You know what I mean? Like, so I get days where I'm like...
You still have that inkling of hope.
That's me and Cara's theme.
Yeah.
That was our theme through our whole lives, is like mustard seed.
Mm-hmm.
And, so yeah, I'll never say one way or the other. Yeah. I have to know.
Do you believe someone out there knows exactly where she is and what may or may not have happened to her?
Yeah. I do. I feel like...
What would you say to that person?
I thought about that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of long. I don't know. You may want to edit it out. But here's the thing. Here's the deal. Cara would make comments. Play this song at my funeral. Mindy, I want you to be the first one with a handful of dirt when they bury me. Like, we've made jokes, oh, that, don't let them come to my funeral, or,
Yeah.
If she's not with us, she needs to be buried. She deserves her family and friends to be around and say goodbye to her.
Yeah.
She deserves people to say good things to her. She deserves that one last song. And I think that I used to think that murder was the worst thing, right? It's like if somebody's hurt my sister, obviously some things went wrong somewhere. Mm-hmm. But if that's what happened to her, that's still not as bad as denying us the right to say goodbye to her and bury her.
And living in oblivion.
She deserves to be sent off to her Creator. She believed in God more than anything. She didn't trust herself. She didn't trust people. But she trusted God. Mm-hmm. Every single move she made. It was kind of annoying. She was like, God's will. This will be God's will. Mm-hmm. Whatever's God's will. And I just feel like we need a chance to, to pray, say goodbye if that's the case.
Yeah.
I don't think that she's being held against her will, because she'd fight people. Like, you can't make her do anything she doesn't want to do. So I really don't. I feel like something's happened to her. I feel like something's bad happened to her.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Based on the circumstances of the case, what do you think happened?
It's hard to say. I don't know.
Yeah.
Which explains why, I'm just wearing myself out trying to get a clue. I need to know what happened because my scenarios that I worry about, we went out to the desert to where her phone pinged, and there's mines out there. So, like, while we're looking for her, there's, like, a deep hole, and I'm like, what is this? And we do research. And there was a man that searched for, like, old war metal pieces, but he also searched mines. And he came all the way down from Maine at his own expense.
To help.
Drove all the way down there and searched those mines.
That was so good.
And that was a lot of peace of mind because I thought, that to me was a terrible thought, thinking that she was, that she had just been stranded in the desert maybe or walked off into that,
I'm glad to hear that, to help with coping with this awful, situation that you are, seeking therapy and getting help in that sense. I'm curious what kind of emotion, comes out when you think of how many people are willing to help with Cara's case. It's easy to settle on all the negative and, all the things you don't know and the sadness, but to know all these people are willing to help.
When somebody goes out of their way, particularly there's certain people in the field you can tell that they care, and it is the only hope that you have in this just constant feeling of helplessness. It's just immense gratitude. It's hard to even put into words. Because you feel like you've been abandoned. You feel like there's this thing that you have to do. Like, you've got to find her. You've got to find out what happened to her. And you look around, and I realized there's so many missing people out there. People have their own things going on. People are like, oh, that's terrible. I'm so sorry to hear, But it's different when you got somebody that's, he's calling. Did you go out there? Can you go out there? Hey, how did it go when you go out there? He's spent his own time and money, Missing Persons Day, introduced me to a lot of people. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have put my DNA. No agency ever was like, you need to submit your DNA. That way, you could be potentially matched if something
gets
comes
found.
up.
Found.
I had no clue that even existed, that's something that needed to be done. He set that up. It's amazing. And it makes me want to help, like other people that have missing family members or they're first starting out, you think about those kind of things. Is anybody telling them that? Is anybody helping them?
Encouraging them to keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why do you think, and both of you can answer this, why do you think people, who maybe don't know about her case or are those people that just say, oh, sorry about that, and then kind of walk away, why should they care about Cara's case?
Well, sorry, do you want to answer this one?
No, I want you to.
When Cara first went missing, Arizona was the number one state for missing people in 2022. By 2023, it was Oklahoma. The number one out of all states, the most missing people. And I think I was guilty of this, you see missing flyers, especially children, and you're like, oh, that's just terrible. That is so terrible that they're going through that. You say a prayer, and then you focus on things that are going on with you. This is This is more than that now. This is a community, statewide problem.
Mm-hmm.
You don't notice until it happens to you. He's exactly right about that. You don't. And you don't, like, I used to think if somebody goes missing, they call the police, and the police are just working 40 hours a week to find this person.
Like on television. Yeah.
It is not like that at all. They don't have the resources either.
Mm-hmm.
Case overloaded.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just kind of, those statistics in general just kind of wake you up, because it's not only just like, you know, well, it'll never happen to me. You might be living in a state where it's more common than you think.
Yep.
So it might not be an if it happens to you. It could be a when.
Yeah.
You know,
like a heart attack. It's not if, it's when.
Yeah. And so that's terrifying, and that's a great point. It's a way to empathize with Cara's case and put you in those shoes. Yeah. Great point. So what haven't we spoken about today about Cara or her case that you feel like the viewers, the listeners should know?
It's so complicated.
You want to name the possible places on that route, the gas station and the casino, since this is going to be viewed everywhere, and because she'll put up the flyer like she did Mary's.
Yeah.
So if people see her and then think, oh, I was in Arizona at that time, or I stopped at
Right.
that tell her what gas stations and stuff she was at during that trip.
So in her suitcase, there was a Twin Arrows pin from Twin Arrows Resort, just east of Flagstaff.
Okay.
Like 20 minutes east of Flagstaff. There's a resort there called Twin Arrows. I believe, and the guy that she was with confirmed, that they stayed there. But that would have been probably at the 15th, probably around the 15th, somewhere in
2022.
Of 2022, yeah.
Okay.
So that's one area. And then the Mojave National Preserve between Needles and Bakersfield. I would say all through that stretch there. Her phone pinged north, like 15 miles in the desert north of where Essex Rest Stop is.
What highway is Essex off of?
I-40.
I-40.
Yeah,
And that
I-40.
would have been the 14th or 15th it pinged. May of
No, it
2022.
pinged on the 23rd.
On the 23rd.
Nearly, long time later.
All right.
But it hadn't been used either, so
Yeah.
that was really strange too. That's a huge question mark for me. But yeah, it didn't ping until the 23rd. So, but I still don't even know what day she allegedly was left at the rest stop. I have no idea. I have no idea what she was wearing. No idea when she was left there. No timeline. Nothing. I have a witness that said he's seen her at the Daggett exit, which is several miles west of there. But I don't know that it was confirmed ever that it was actually her. So, yeah, it's
A lot of questions.
too many to sleep at night, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand things being under investigation, but
You need something to hold on to grasp onto.
You see these movies, taken, somebody's daughter's missing or somebody's, and in the movie, they're like doing all these things and they go and they find them and, and you're like, man, if a family member of mine ever went missing, I would stop at nothing to find them. It's not like that. It's not like that. You can go out there and search the desert for days and see nothing but rocks and have to drive home. She mattered to us,
Yeah, of course. I'm sure that's not an easy feeling to think. I didn't find her this time. And now I have to go home, and she could be waiting for me.
Yeah, because she would call me.
Yeah.
We could be so mad at each other, and she'd call me.
Mm-hmm.
In her little voice, and just be like, so-and-so's being mean to me. Can you come get me? And just go.
Yeah. Mindy, thank you so much for speaking with me today and sharing Cara's case.
Thank you for getting her information out there. It really does mean a lot to us.
Absolutely. It is our pleasure, 100%. If you know anything about Cara's case or you may have seen her, there will be a number and a flyer up at the end of this video and in the bio of this podcast where you can call and leave any tip, whether that's anonymous or not. Thank you both so much for speaking with me, and
thanks for having us.
let's find Cara.
But,